Frankie Boyle is a very cool and industry favourite lighting artist. She claims her passion for the industry began early on, age 7, when diagnosed with a development language disorder and dyslexia. She then noticed that lighting creates different emotions in people. From a busy career designing the lighting schemes for 1.5 metre Tiffany diamonds and costumes at Glastonbury, Frankie openly admits her work-life balance is something of a challenge. She's an advocate of women's rights and a lover of the Guilty Feminist podcast crew. Frankie Boyle, welcome to the podcast. Do you get mistaken for the comedian?
Often, I think people, when I'm calling up somewhere or give my name over, they're like, they realise it flags in their mind. It's like, oh, this is a famous person.
Oh, you
and then it
tables.
And then after a while, then they're like, oh, hang on, but you're not that person. I know. But when I started up my blog, like people, his fan base, man, are strong. Like I got so many like people saying, "You're not Frankie Boyle. How dare you take male names? Male names are," and you know, there's kind of hilarious, but
like your name was a choice.
Yeah, I know. I was a bit like, no, actually, I was born before he became famous, so it wasn't actually like.
So put a sock in it.
I have sometimes get asked. I use a relationship to Susan, and I'm like. Please don't tell me you've looked at me and said that. Obviously, she's a beautiful woman.
She is fabulous and has a great singing voice.
Yes, she's amazing human.
What is your deal then? Like, how are you here? Like, you're fascinating and you are a ball of energy.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing human.
Often energy is one word that gets described with me, and sometimes I think for many years I was trying to like hide it. I got myself a life coach this year, and she sort of made this comment of being like, I always had this thing of like wanting to fit in and wanting to be different, like not different, but wanting to fit in. And she was like, but nothing about you fits in. So why are you trying to fit in? And I was like, oh, right. Okay. Yeah. maybe we'll take that.
That is, I cannot wait to explore that further. I mean, why are we so obsessed with fitting in?
Well,
I want you to prove to me, not you, but your general public to prove to me why you are worthy of my time.
Yeah.
Why don't we see it the other way round? People have to earn our respect.
Yeah.
We give ourselves as humans such a hard time. What is your icebreaker, please? You've got something on the table.
So, I actually didn't realise I had this, and it was actually quite a funny story. I went to get this today, and I live on the 23rd floor, and I wasn't wearing any clothes. Went to think, I need to get my icebreaker, and then there was a window cleaner outside, and I suddenly was just like, oh, I am full frontal, and here is the window cleaner.
I bet you made his day.
Oh, well, yeah, hopefully. So it is an apron. I was brought up as a chef. Both my parents are chefs, and they have their own outside catering company. So the age of like 14, I was brought into, the only way that I could actually learn or spend any time with them was by working with them every weekend. So, Dad got me in at the kitchen at the age of 14, and then just started teaching me the ways of the kitchen. And then by 18, I started running kitchens. And to be honest with you, I feel like actually that was one of my benefits of understanding how to get the best out of people, and also reading people's emotions because of my difficulties. Because I had to suddenly tell people who are like much older than me how to do things and what to do and the time limits and get the best out of your team. And you had to work out a way to like communicate that to them and to be like, okay, it would be really great if we did this. And it was actually really interesting to start noticing different ways to communicate to people to get the best out of them. Like so many jobs that people have, or we've all had, where our superior is shit or just not a very nice person, and you're thinking, why are you doing that? Surely you want to get the best out of that person. Like big them up or say something really positive with something else that needs to be happening.
What would be a technique of yours then to empower somebody?
Well, oh, that's a tricky one. But it would always be like, it would be amazing if we could get this done with this, and I know that you're really great at this, and why if you could do that as well at the same time, and just being like, okay, so I know that you're really awesome at that, or like if they haven't done something very well, you're like, okay, well, I know that you can and you do much better things. So why don't you just, like, I know that must have had an off day or whatever it might have been, but I know that you can do this better. So let's do this. And then we need to have this. And And also the problem solving, working in a kitchen, especially outside catering, because you had to like serve 200 people all at the same time. It's not like restaurants where, you know, you have a large table of maybe 20 people at most. It was 200 people for their wedding, had to be, and everything had to turn out perfect. And it was this, you know, it's the amount of times that you get given one of the higher cupboards or the higher ovens that didn't work, or suddenly all the electricity dies 2 hours before they all sit down. It's not like you can go to the bride and groom and say, I'm really sorry, oven's gone. We're going to have to delay your wedding. Like, everything had to work. And I remember this one time, like, literally all electrics did go. And Dad was like, right, your job. We had one like gas cooker, and he just had all these saucepans on this one gas cooker, and my job was literally just to stand there and just rotate all of these dishes. And I kid you not, this fillet of beef came out perfect for 200 people. And I was like, I literally don't know how you've done this.
So you're good under pressure, and you're a solutions person.
Yes. I hate it when someone's like, oh, you know, let's start pointing fingers. And we were talking about TV world, and TV world is a real, like, pointing your fingers, like, that person's done that, whereas events world, although it has many downsides, there is, like, this world of, like, camaraderie and just coming together and getting the job done. And everyone's there to just make sure it happens.
I feel it's live performances.
Yeah.
It's like here and now, and the people that it attracts are get stuff done.
Yeah. No, like, let's just take our own time and lapsadaisical and kind of...
blame that person, blame that. Yeah. Why were you in TV? How did that come about?
Well, after university, I studied three-dimensional design. So it was wood, metal, plastics and ceramics. And you specialise in two materials. And then I had this obsession with, or passion, should we say? Obsession's never a good word, is it? Passion for light. And I knew I wanted to get into lighting, but I didn't really know what. And I'd been told by my product designers that, you know, product was the way forward. And I just thought, you know, by this time I'd already built a product, which was a light-up video tile. And I was thinking, do I want to get that into market? And I was watching Strictly Come Dancing one evening. And I thought, I suppose this lighting's quite cool, isn't it? That's a thing. So as the credits rolled, I Googled Mark Kenyon, lighting director, found an email address, emailed him. Put my portfolio on, and normally I get my mum to, like, back in those days, spell check everything, because I'm so dyslexic that, reading and writing just isn't a thing. But anyway, I just thought, this guy's never going to come back to me, so I might as well. There's no point in me even getting this spell check.
Mark Kenyon from Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah, so I just emailed him, just like, wow, love your stuff, this is me, whoa. And just like, never going to hear from him, so it's fine. Yeah, and weirdly, within half an hour, he came back to me. And he said, yeah, come meet me on the set of Strictly. Be really good to meet you and, talk about your work. And I was like, what?
That is incredibly, that's proactive and that is ballsy.
And I often have been told, I think because of my communication disorder, I'm quite direct with situations and moving forward. And, you know, I don't necessarily make things fluffy. And it was like, it was this move. And I then apprenticed him for the next 6 months on, little did I realise, he's like the David Beckham of the light world. So I've like gone into this, and then everyone has sort of thought, God, you've just like contacted him directly. And he at the time was like, he did Strictly Come Dancing. We did loads of Ant and Dec, Britain's Got Talent, Push the Button, all these programs. And
you cut your teeth amongst the A-list.
Yeah, basically.
Of lighting.
Yeah.
Hey there. If you're enjoying this episode and want to hear more exciting and informative chats about design and architecture, then don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, back to the episode.
So I thought, okay, well, I've made all these contacts in the art department and I can make stuff and I'm creative. So I then went into that world, art department, started making loads of different props. And I remember working on Celebrity Juice with my art director at the time. And she we were making all these, had to make these beef curtains for Keith Lemon for when Lady Gaga was one of the guests. And then I got, it just was hilarious, bizarre stories where, we could.
How's it, and not necessarily relating to lighting?
No.
Beef curtains.
Yeah, so that's the thing, like so much designing. So, and I remember working on this program called Hotel GB, and I was it was like the British Bake Off, but for hotels. So you had Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen, you had Mary Queen of Scots behind the front desk, you had all these like really famous people in these different areas of the hotel. Obviously, I only had one. I presume I only had one series. It didn't do too well. But my job was assistant to the art director, and she said, "Oh, can you go up to the top room and do the master suite, or is it the penthouse suite? And the whole room needs to turn to white." The director has just said. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." Then she gave me all these lovely white, beautiful velour curtains. Go upstairs. And I go up with a cup of coffee. I put the coffee down and I whip out this curtain and it knocks over the coffee. And then the coffee just comes all the way down this curtain. I'm just like, oh my God, this is awful.
And you've got a deadline.
I literally, this evening we go live. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can pleat the curtain so you don't see it. And then I went downstairs and I told her, and I said, I'm so sorry, I've done this. And I think I've got away with it. I think I pleated it. She's like, okay, cool. I don't know if I should be saying this, but anyway. I then, after lunch, I had a bottle of Coca-Cola, ran upstairs, didn't have the lid on properly, put it on the side, got the second curtain out, whipped it. And literally, I kid you not, this bottle falls over. Not only falls over, because I've like run up the stairs with it, it starts to spiral like cyclone. This whole room is beautifully white.
Now they hate you.
And now I'm like, I'm trying to like quickly get this lid back on, stop it, and then just look around being like,
and was there Coke everywhere?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I put the curtain up, and then it's one of those moments where you're like, do I just run? do I own up? Anyway, she then comes in and she then turns to me, she goes, you made the coffee incident not seem so bad. And I was like, yeah. And I remember thinking, don't tell her that you've just done it with Coca-Cola. So I was just like, yeah, so it does actually now doesn't look that great.
And then what happened to your TV career? Was that short-lived?
Weird that, right? I don't know where it suddenly disappeared to. There was lots of amusing stories in that world. But I knew lighting. I was art director for our show called Tipping Point. And this lighting company kept coming in and putting these podiums up and plugging all this LED in. So I approached them and said, look, I really want to get this product to market.
Is this your light tile?
My light tile, yeah.
That you created at university?
Yeah. It was actually when I was 18 working with my parents. I was serving food in the evenings to the guests at like a garden party, but the guests couldn't see the canopies. They couldn't, because there's no light.
Clever.
So I was just, I'll just design a tray with some lights in it, and just went to Maplin and soldered some stuff together. Electrocuted myself a few times. Thought this is cool. Let's just keep going. And then I just knew that this became like a thing. So I really wanted to get it to. Now I knew that there was this whole world of light that you could communicate through the computer, and I created this coding that converted a hexadecimal value into a color hexadecimal value into like a point of information and language, and so therefore, yeah. So that was going down a little rabbit hole. I'll just come out of that rabbit hole.
I'm still with you. So you've got this. You finished your TV, and you've got this lighting tile.
Yeah,
that you created when you were 18.
Yeah,
as by way of a solution to a problem.
Yeah, a solution to a problem, and I knew that it had loads of different possibilities. Of you could either build it like Lego bricks, or you could have it as like serving food.
Why would you want Lego bricks?
Well, I just sort of thought if you're at a place where you didn't have electricity, let's say you're out in a festival or just out within a room, that you could quickly create like a video screen, a portable video screen without any cabling, and it would just like work off just like connecting together. So anyway, the design kind of evolved and it's sort of, it's turned into many different forms and things along the journey of, yes.
I'm curious about your career trajectory or your career path.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what has been your driving force for each of your choices along the way. You seem almost quite fatalistic.
A lot of hard...
Grasping opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely through... because of my severe language disorder, there's this being real sort of need to be able to sort of communicate with people. And I do feel language is this sort of... is like a really clumsy way of communicating, where actually our body language is true and how we feel and our energies are the true things, but actually language can throw someone off the scent or completely masquerade our actual feelings. And sort of coming through life like this and sort of understanding how people feel within spaces and interact with spaces and light from day one, especially when I was having all these tests from the scientists of trying to work out why my brain worked like it did. Like a lot of the times it was done on a sensory simulation with lighting, loads of fiber optics. And I just knew that light had this connection to people. And I knew that even at a party kind of environment, what lighting worked and what didn't work. And so therefore, when I started going down sort of the TV route, I wasn't being fulfilled. I didn't connect with it. And what I realized was I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to be able to connect with people on a deeper level than what I was doing. And I knew that light had this facility to, just as music does, to connect with people. And I wanted to explore that and push that and see the boundaries that I could play with that. And so therefore, went into this company who then we developed this tile together and became their main designer for about 3 years, working with some amazing brands and amazing clients, and then decided to go off on my own and just and that point was hard, like the next 3 years of just getting your own.
Leaving the tile company and becoming self-employed.
Yeah, well, the tile company, so they were a big lighting company within the TV world and still are. But I just wanted to have that connection to exploring and helping, because the lighting that I was providing was all for a TV or film basis, so therefore, or on stage. So even a stage is a somewhat screen-based thing, and we're obsessed. Everybody's obsessed with looking into a screen. Screens in our phones, our laptops, promoting. Everywhere we look, there's screens, and we're losing this ability to be in this three-dimensional world, to literally physically move our head around and feel and be absorbed by our environment. And we're all wanting to be inside a 2D screen, which is then a 3D object. Which is like this, the irony. We're so hungering for the 3D, we're looking through a 3D to get to the 3D, rather than just being in the 3D.
Interesting.
And I was just like, I want to make people. As soon as I started really like tuning into meditation and I just realized this whole world, which I'm conscious of ever using that word, because when you use meditation, people associate that word. Zone out, and they're just like, oh God, here's another hippie or whatever. But actually all it is about noticing how we work, how we communicate, how we are within space. That's all meditation is. It's just a form of noticing, and noticing that, you know, we're only looking into screens. Notice that we don't breathe when we look into screens. Notice that we blink half as much when we look into screens.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
We don't breathe when we're looking at our phones.
Yeah.
As much as we ought to.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Interesting.
I can't think of the word that I'm trying to find. Somewhere in there. Stunts our breathing. And, you know, all of these really crucial things that we need to be able and to survive, and the sun and just being outdoors, how important sunlight is. We spend 90% of our time indoors. We're like in biological darkness. Only 10% of our brain is influenced by food. 48% of our brain is influenced by light. But yet we take light for granted. But our bodies are engines. It gets fueled by food. but it gets built by the sun. And it doesn't get built by all these artificial lights around us. It has, and there is technology coming onto the market with different, having all these different wavelengths to be able to allow our bodies to function. But the sunlight is how our body functions, and it's the fuel for our cognitive processes.
So what I'm hearing you saying is 90% of our days are spent indoors.
Yeah.
So 10% are spent in direct sunlight.
Yeah.
And 48% of our well-being originates from being in sunlight.
Yes. So
we're all a bit messed up then.
Yeah. So therefore, no wonder we're having this mental health crisis and sleep disorder crisis, because we're depriving our body of what we have always been built to be. 4 billion years of evolution. And in the last speck of evolution of 180 years, we've built artificial light, which allows us to spend time indoors. Like, that's a blink of an eye in evolutionary times. Like, our bodies have literally learned to be underneath this bright blue light box through the daytime. And in the evening time, everything gets brought down to eye level, this really like warm tones in the fire. And when we look into a candle flame, even now, no matter who you are, no matter what nationality you are, if you look into a candle flame or any type of fire, it has this really intrinsic response to us. And that is what I'm sort of fascinated with within my artwork.
And I know you, on your bio, you detail that you're a light for mental health.
Yeah.
And you have a life coach.
Yeah.
And you're involved in that whole well-being space.
Well,
that's a great link. Light, mental health, be the light. Yeah.
Yeah, massively. And it's, to be honest with you, before Corona, I was working with some really lovely clients and projects, and everything was more done on the escapism side of aspect of allowing us to feel, having that like intrinsic response to like fire and looking into and having that escapism. But then as soon as Corona happened, I realized I connected my worth and my career to who I was. So therefore, when my career fell, I fell and had a bit of a breakdown. And then I thought, no, hang on, I've got to be of use. I've got to be of help. And I don't really ever see design for me and anything people create should be of help to people and use to people rather than just designing stuff for stuff's sake. And so, I then thought, okay, well, I'm going to teach people how to do lighting, because the amount of times you go on your one walk a day and you go past this window and they've got all the bright lights on and all the wrong lights at the wrong time of the day, and I was like, okay, no wonder they're being stressed out or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll start a vlog and just teach people how light works, science, and how light reflects and creates color, and those wavelengths, how they affect our brain. And then tell people why we shouldn't have bright white lights above our heads when we're trying to unwind into the evening, because we're not releasing our melatonin, we're not releasing the chemical to say, okay, let's relax and feel connected and sleep.
Which is why I guess there's different light settings for different environments.
Yeah.
To inspire people to feel in different ways. So if you go into a health spa and in the relaxation area, it tends to be a yellow light, a warmer light that's very low level.
Yes. So that's all stems from evening time. So therefore, as the sun sets, it becomes eye level. So any evening light should always be eye level. You should never have any light above your head.
Good tip.
Yeah. So it's all nice, warm, candescent tones eye level. And you want to balance and then release that sort of like fire mentality. And the fire creates this sensation of, back in the day, caveman days was very much the time of communication and family and creativity and love. And so therefore all of these rich red, orange, yellow tones are releasing that into you. So therefore you'd have it in a spa environment because you're connecting to our like DNA of what we've been like evolved to do.
What is the worst, like what is a nightmare lighting setup? Pendant lighting.
Yeah, like the really bright white lights in the wrong circumstance is like, my friends always take the mick out of me, and the fact of I can't go anywhere if it's really bad lighting. I'd really try. I really try and sit there.
What does it do to you?
It's just, you're just not feeling connected. And the thing is, nobody's really feeling connected, but they are not tuning in to them being a little bit like on edge or...
But it comes back to that. I always say this, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not connected in shopping centres, and it's probably because of the lights.
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
Yes, definitely. And so therefore...
But you're aware of it.
Yeah. And so therefore, that's the thing. Once you become aware of these things, it's really difficult to try and relax into circumstances.
Yeah, you're like the weirdest house guest. Can you... Sorry. If you could just describe to me your lighting scheme just before I decide whether I'm going to RSVP, yes or no?
Yeah, my friends, so many times now I've gotten to the point where they're just like, you know, they're used to me coming in and maybe just switching some switches and turning some and covering some bulbs with different things. And they're like, oh, Frankie's just doing the thing.
For example, what? Like, how would you make something better?
Well, with LED bulbs, they don't really get hot. So you can drape your pashminas or your scarves or your tea towel if needed over a light bulb to like give out more of a diffused, even temperature. So therefore it becomes again down into any type of glare. You don't want glare, because glare reminds it makes our irises expand and contract constantly, so therefore we're spending more energy to our eyes than we are to our brains, and so therefore we're using up all our energy sources in all the wrong places. And we want to have the idea of good lighting is you almost don't know that there is good lighting. It's almost becomes, you just walk into a space and you're just like beautifully lit, and you don't even feel like, oh, this is a bright light, or this is too dark, or this is this. And all your energy is going to your brain and your motivation and your positivity, and hence why we should have the right lighting in our work environments to create exactly that. To be like, okay, I feel really motivated, because sunlight doubles the rate of recovery from depression. And when we start looking into the facts of what light does, and it motivates us, and we live so much in way too dark environments for our sort of just positivity at the end of the day.
Have you read this month's issue of Designer magazine yet? Available in digital and print editions, Designer magazine keeps you updated on the world of design and architecture. Get your free trade subscription today at Designerati.co.uk.
So at 7 years old, you're diagnosed with a development language disorder.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming was a defining moment.
Yeah, that was a big moment. So yeah, they realised that there was some interesting things going on, that I wasn't really understanding language. So they started doing some tests, and then every 2 weeks for 2 years, I went to Guy's Hospital in front of loads of scientists doing loads of like interesting, she responds to this with clipboards and bits and pieces. And then loads of like MRI scans and just seeing what was connecting and what wasn't connecting. And they realized my IQ was extremely high, whereas the disability was just being sort of fragmented at the bottom. So therefore I came across as a normal functioning kid, because my brain was almost working overtime to come around all these other problems to be like, I am normal, I promise, even though the backlog of just all this stuff that I was trying to work out. Now, at the time, and definitely through school, it was very much a sort of a disability, whereas now I feel like it's very much a positivity, and it's sort of my superpower, because I now can, and I know that I do, think very differently to the straight line direct approach. And yeah, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's a bit more lengthy, and it's the garden route, but it creates and it just allows me to tune into, with that disability, I was just I'm a big believer that if you take one sense away, your other senses grow stronger. My sense for environment and people and energies and what people were wanting from me became hypersensitized, because I was trying to find out what people were needing from me and wanting from me just by the energy. And so apparently I got told that people thought I was deaf a lot of the time, because I would just stare at them intently. And then, so obviously that creates your own issues when you're at school. And very much through school, the kids are everyone's trying to pretend to be something that they're not. And that threw me. Like, I just didn't understand why someone was pretending to be something or feel something that they weren't being truthful to themselves. And so again, I kind of missed out on this whole like fitting in thing. So I was like, okay, I'm just, I feel like language surely just should help you to say rather than disguise. But then, yeah.
But that's such an interesting awareness that at such a young age you'd have that revelation that people are trying to figure out who they are. I mean, most people go through life. I mean, I think there's a statistic. Most people go through life. Something like 88% of people will go through life really, really sad and thinking that they've failed at life, but actually not relate that to the fact that maybe it's because I haven't figured out who I am.
Yeah, definitely. And don't get me wrong, like it took me a long time to sort of work a lot of the stuff out, which I now can look back on and be like, oh, okay, jigsaw puzzle, let's pull this stuff together. And, even with light, like I wasn't aware that I was obsessed, motivated through light because until someone physically said, look, you have weaved fairy lights through every sketchbook, you've created this type of light at this project, and every single project through art and design at school involved light, but I was unaware of it. It was just light in some sense, in some way, and then all the design stuff. And it wasn't until my final year at uni where my tutor was like, right, think you need to harness this. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realise this was a thing.
And what's really weird is you actually are a beacon of light. We have many, many different podcast guests, and they each have their own qualities. But when you walked in today, you've got this mane of gorgeous red hair, your eyes sparkle, and you just look like a beacon of light, which is so weird. Because that's your thing, light. Some of your projects, oh my gosh, are incredible.
Thank you.
So Glastonbury, Tiffany's.
Yeah, so
you're not playing small, are you?
Yeah, so the Tiffany project.
That was a 1.5 meter diamond.
Yeah, so they wanted a immersive experience for the last room of their immersive experience, celebrating how it was called the Diamonds of Tiffany, and guests were invited through on these 7 rooms to explore how they got mined, then they got cut, how each diamond got processed and developed and designed, and then the last room was to evoke that emotion that the Tiffany diamond gives you. So a lot of my work is tuning into what I'm wanting to get out of you, or like what I'm wanting to sort of, for me, artwork is all about what that evokes in the viewer rather than
the
what
feeling.
my sentence
what it makes
is.
you feel.
Yeah. So to begin with, the design looked into walking through the ring and looking up to the Tiffany clasp. And the Tiffany clasp was the famous thing about Tiffany. And I just thought, you're just walking through a metal ring. There's nothing exciting about this, that anyone could walk through a metal ring. The diamond bit is the exciting bit. So we were like, okay, fine. We looked into how this diamond would come across. And then we said, okay, well, why don't we just expand? Why don't we just make a massive solitaire diamond? And it went through loads and the client naturally said, look, what are you going to give us? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to give you until you lock me in a dungeon for 3 weeks and I have all the materials to start shooting lights at and to twinkle and to sparkle, because I could design you something on paper, but light never works the way that you necessarily expect it to. And that's my quandary constantly with client and design, is because until you start playing with materials and playing with light and seeing how things reflect and refract and play and interact with each other, you can't get the wow factor. So I said,
you must have a good reputation, because if I had a builder on site and he said to me, Melissa, just leave me alone for 3 weeks, come back to me and I'll show you what I'm building you, I'd say absolutely no thanks.
I know, but the fortunate thing on my side was time. We only had 4 weeks until the show in South Korea was starting, and it had to be shipped out. And so I said, look, because we got to quite a firm, not fighting point, but quite a firm point in our communications. And I was like, look, you need to trust me on this. I will develop you something amazing, but until you sign to delete. And they're like, okay, fine, but like, we want an update. They're like, we want a written update every day of like where you've got to and what you think. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I can give you a video recording. So
do you go into deep work in a dungeon?
Yeah, so I literally went into a dungeon for about 3 weeks and had all these different lights, programmed this LED, had every reflective quality material that you could possibly have, started doing things, and it was just like, day number 5, I found this and it does like this, and what about this, and we could do this and this, what do you think? And they apparently actually really thoroughly amused themselves with just like these diary updates from this mad girl in England.
But you had absolute faith that you would deliver.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, as soon as the money hit my bank account, I was like, oh god, this is terrifying, as every artist should, because I feel like if you were a bit lapsy-daisical with that, then there's something wrong within that. Whereas here I was like, right, I'm going to make sure that this thing does everything you want to and more. And it was amazing. Like, it was, and who knew every facet of a diamond was cut in 3 different angles. And then just the jig to make this diamond was like insane. And then I integrated another diamond coming through, because solitaire diamonds are designed for light to hit it from the top. And I was inverting this diamond, you're looking at it from the bottom up. And so I was just like, oh god, I've got to create the same type of qualities a diamond would, but upside down, but in a massive scale. And so it was like 2-way mirror film integrated with LED, with programmed twinkle, with then like especially twinkle that you'd think a diamond would, integrated and then underlaid that with loads of crystals, so therefore you'd never see the LED, but you'd fragment all the light, so therefore you're getting these prisms with, and then point crystals basically. So I managed to create like a 4-minute light show that created this diamond that kept exploding, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all the real jewelry was underneath, so it was just reflecting it, all its fragments above. So the irony and the hilarious part of this whole project was, in the dungeon, this thing was amazing, like literally just like, whoa, this is good. But the thing is, when we got to the site, now we had, when you feel like you've asked every question other than, is there a ceiling? And you're just like, I suppose I never asked if there was a ceiling. But we had talked about rigging, we talked about it above. So
what
the rigging
does it mean
was
if
there.
there's a ceiling? It's going to affect the light.
Yeah, so this room is the only way I can describe it. It's probably in like it's like a kind of a Barbican room. It's like a massive, massive building. But inside the massive building, it's all painted white. So I'm technically inside a light box. Now, light doesn't show off other light if there's light in the room. So although that they've created all this rigging above my head for the diamond to hang from, which we'd gone into huge amounts of detail with over the phone and email, there was no ceiling on top of that. So I was like, we're gonna have to have a ceiling. Anyway, the next day, sort of like planks of wood and a bit of hessian sort of like dropped at my feet. No,
but that's where your chef days come in, when you were balancing all those pots.
Yeah,
pile. I can do it.
Yes, okay. And then my production manager said, it's not your job to make a ceiling. I was like, okay, great. If someone else is gonna, that'd be great.
Have you got an award-winning design? Every year we host the Designer Awards, where we celebrate the very best in design and architecture at a swanky venue in London. Find out how to submit your entry for free at designerawardsuk.com. Best of luck!
Glastonbury.
Glastonbury.
Yeah.
So Glastonbury was...
You did the costumes?
I did the costumes, and that was us working for this company that I was looking into doing the tiles with. So
are you getting recommended? Is that how you're getting your work?
So, yeah, from now it's sort of like word of mouth. And it's because I think people like to generally work with people that they connect with. And from hospitality side of things, I've sort of learned this, like, yes, sir, no, sir, clients are always right kind of communication. And I think, especially at the beginning, especially through my art department days, like that's what was probably not gelling that well, because that in that industry, that's not how people communicated. So that was actually really hindering me. And it wasn't until I realized, actually, I need to take this sort of like hospitality side away from me and actually just connected with me. And just the more I could connect with myself and my quirkiness, the more that I attracted people to trust me and to connect with me to create designs and bits and pieces for them.
But the way you describe that, it just sounds like Oh, I just decided to actually change a part of my personality.
It sort of did. I remember having this meeting with this light artist that I've been so wanting to have a meeting with, and I've been hassling him for ages. Please meet me, please meet me, please meet me. And I said, for coffee. And then he said, well, let's do 5:30. And I thought, I don't know if 5:30 is a meeting for coffee. And then he said, right at this pub. So I was like, okay, so it's a pub vibe. Anyway, he obviously, what I was picking up on was the fact that he really just couldn't be bothered to see me. But anyway, so he sat down, he's got his pint, and he sat down, and his pint like just literally sat in front of his face. And I thought, God, this is the most awkward meeting in the world. And so I thought, I can't say to him, oh, I really like, be our light artist and blah, 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 blah. So I tried to like talk to him, and he just was, and I think people presume something about me, which is quite generic and just sort of straightforward, until they start to actually communicate with me and understand my, let's say, the quirkiness. You could see he had sort of really judged me and put me in a box. And I realized the way that I was going to show him that I'm not part of that box was the more that I showed my quirkiness and actually my passion. And then I just saw this slowly but surely this pint glass move down and be like, oh, okay, you're obviously coming out of this box that I judged you upon. And I think people do that all the time. And I get why we have to do it, because we have to reserve energy and reserve expectation for other people. So therefore, okay, if we can just mold that person, like, great, I know who that is. I don't need to spend any more time with you. I don't need to connect with you in empathy levels. It saves us energy. So I get why as an evolutionary thing we do it, but it's also the most frustrating thing to hit through. And I also find it fascinating when people think these narratives. It's so interesting when you're talking with someone, you're thinking, God, your narrative about me is so bizarre, and I would love to know what it is, because it isn't what is
who I truthfully am.
Yeah, which is really interesting. And so you just sometimes have to be really curious.
You're very self-aware.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're a self-aware human. So Glastonbury, was that fun?
Glastonbury was great. So we were designing these costumes. Now, I had worked out this way of creating like a neon light, created these costumes in the after hours at my work, and just being like, look, what about this? Or
in your dungeon?
In my dungeon. And then we went to them, and it was actually the year that I was working with Lily Allen. We made these like baby bottles for her.
The pop star.
Yeah. And it was on the last night, we were dancing underneath. So I basically went in this costume, and my programmer at the time had pre-programmed different content as different looks to my costume. So as we came out of the tents, like this guy came up and high-fived me, and as he high-fived me, my costume changed, and you could just, he literally basically nearly fell over. He was just like, whoa, did I do that to you? And then he would like touch me again. I would go completely different other kind. They're like, and literally it was like flocking of people just running towards me, wanting to high-five me. So like,
it's like those mood bracelets. Do you remember?
Yeah.
People used to wear them. You used to change colour depending on whether they were angry, happy, in love.
Yeah. So we went and danced underneath the spider, and then they saw me and they asked our company to make the costumes. So we then developed this and it was a really lovely experience to work with all of these aerialists to like mold towards their body and create these costumes. And Arcadia, hopefully will be, well, I am doing an installation with them this year at a new festival called Valley Fest, and we're showing people all about sustainability of how grass is the most important thing to our planet and blah, 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 that whole sustainability thing. So we're doing an installation there. And then I've just been doing some other trees for some other clients. There's a real tree theme this year. Lots of clients wanting trees.
I've got so many questions to ask you, but finally,
Yes.
What do you say to any women listening to this and thinking, that is a cool career?
Yeah, definitely get into it, because there's a lot of people in the world, there's a lot of men in my industry who love to make things seem complicated and difficult. And when you actually pull things apart, you realize they're really not. It's just the way that people communicate things. And the amount of times that you come across people being like, I'm going to communicate this in a really complicated way, so you think it's really complicated, especially as a woman, you wouldn't be able to do this. So therefore, you just have to find your own way to communicate to yourself, to be like, right, this is what this means. This is how. And, women do see things in a different aspect is, equality is the way forward, and 100%, trust your gut and move into the.
If only it was so easy.
I know.
Trust your gut. And also, you gesticulate. I find that
I know, there's so much moving.
I feel like energy's moving around you.
Yeah, it's like moving the aura. Communication, I struggle with, so therefore I feel like...
You're dyslexic?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm dyslexic. I've got DLD, developmental learning disorder. Also a bit of synesthesia in there. I used to call people by colours when I was a kid. And then apparently I also called people by fruits. I don't know what that is. Fruitasthesia.
Like banana?
Yeah, I didn't realise. Mum and I went on holiday last week together, and I was like, so can you tell me more about my synesthesia of what I used to do? And she was like, well, you also just name people as fruits. And I was like, God damn it, I was odd. And then probably a bit of ADD in there as well. So yeah, it's a real sort of like cocktail, let's say, of neurodiversity. And I think the more that I can understand how my brain works, the more that I can help neurodiverse people, and I'm only just, the more that I'm noticing myself to being like, oh, okay, great. I now realize I only work through sound. Awesome. I'll try and use that to my best ability, and especially when you're learning talks, to go and talk to people on stage, you're needing to work out these different signifiers to be able to help you with language and just understanding that.
But I'm going to take it one step further, Frankie, as well. You've clearly come through adversity. I'm going to do that in quotes. You've embraced it and you have this can-do attitude. But what I love is the fact that you have developed this resilience, this confidence, this courage, and you now can be that beacon of light for people that gesticulate, for people that are walking through life, with development language disorder, with the dyslexia, and you can, I hate the word, normalize it and make us feel like we can each gesticulate with our hands, we can be flamboyant, we can forget sometimes the words, and we can also simultaneously have high IQs and be female or male or whatever sex you want to be.
Yeah, 100%.
It's all fine.
Yeah, I definitely think like it's through my adversities, because I've always failed at most things. I don't have a fear of failure, so I throw myself in, and the amount of people who say, wow, you just sort of like, you were quite direct with that or that this, I was like, well, yeah, because I've never had the fear of failure, because I've always failed. So therefore it's really helped me in that respect to be like, okay, let's just see what happens. I remember my English teacher at school saying from my GCSE, like, do you even want to take this exam? I was like, it would be a laugh. Why not? And it's things like that. It's just like, you might as well, because what's the harm in not doing it? And the more that I can make neurodiversity normal, the better, because you get judged, especially because I just can't read and write. People just presume that I am this or whatever it might be, and then I do find myself constantly proving people wrong, which is great, but it's also quite sad, really. I'm just like, come on, guys, expect something from me. But you're like, okay, well, if I'm just going to, especially your friends and things, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to show you that I can do this.
You're fascinating. What's your next project? Just briefly.
Next project is this fibre optic installation, which I did previously for Samsung, which is all connects with your heartbeat. And then I might be developing this idea for a immersive experience out in Riyadh. So yeah, doing that. And then at the moment I'm doing integrating lighting into trees for the Ivy restaurants, which are popping up all over there.
That's a great brand. Great brand.
Yes.
Keep lighting up everybody and everything you do. Thank you so much, Frankie Boyle. If you've loved today's podcast, like and subscribe. I'm going to be right here every Monday with more incredibly illuminating guests. See you then.